franktalks.com.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Taking a relationship to the next level. This is Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Welcome to Passion, a show about love, sex, and relationships. On the last Wednesday of every month, we focus on dating and your dating questions. We call it Dating Dilemmas. In studio with me is a dating coach, Frank Kermit of franktalks.com. We'd love to hear from you. Your questions, they can be anything to do with dating, or you're going to answer this question: what is the thing you hate most about dating? 514-800 or 71010 to text in, 1-800-491-2523 to call in. Now, we posted this, Frank and I posted this on Facebook, right? We asked the question, and we couldn't believe how many comments.
Just bombarded.
And how people hate dating. I mean, we hear it in our offices. You hear it from your clients. I hear it from mine. The frustration that comes with dating. I hear it a lot from people who are over 30 and who are really itching to finally to get hitched and get serious and start a family, and they get so frustrated and they hate the games, and there's lots of things they seem to hate about it.
The frustration also for people who were not dating for a long time and got out of a serious relationship, whether it was a breakup, a divorce, and they're getting back into dating,
right?
Only to find that it's just not that easy, and
right.
It may not be as much fun as they remember it to be.
It's too bad, right? If only it could be a process that's fun.
Thing is, dating can be fun. It depends on what your expectations are.
Okay.
If you go in with realistic expectations, dating can be fun. I know a number of singles who love dating. They just see it as a great opportunity to meet people, but they go in with no expectations other than they're getting the chance to meet someone who, hey, if it's not going to turn into a serious relationship, maybe somebody I'll date casually at first. Let's see if we connect. Let's see if we like each other. But they enjoy the process of meeting and talking to people.
Right.
If you are already a person that doesn't feel comfortable in those social situations of getting to know somebody,
right.
of revealing yourself,
right.
of feeling a little vulnerable, of risking rejection, if you're not comfortable with those type of social situations, dating can be a horrible, horrible experience for some.
Unfortunately. So we want to hear what you think is what you hate the most about dating. We want to take some of your texts about that. We'll share some that have appeared on Facebook too, because it's so interesting to just get people's perspectives on this. And maybe we can learn something from all of this, what we could do better maybe. 514-800 or 71010. I do have a question I want to share with you. Maybe you can help out this person. I've met a guy and things started well, but when things got intimate, I tend to play a role of being very sexual being and very comfortable. I tend to even allow the guy to degrade me. It makes him feel empowered, but it never leads to a love relationship. This tends to be my pattern, I have noticed. I was molested as a child and obviously have issues, wondering if guys have a negative opinion of me, thinking I'm cheap, a slut, and not the marrying or serious type, which is what I so desire.
Okay, I think the first question I have is, if you haven't already sought out some level of therapy, that might be the first
abuse.
thing.
Right.
And I would look at that. So before we get into coaching, I think this is someone who probably needs to see a sex therapist.
Or any psychotherapist really who deals with sexual molestation. Yeah.
The second thing is, are you participating in what I would term to be something that falls under the category of BDSM with people that are practitioners in that field? Nothing wrong with enjoying the process of being degraded if that's something that you're doing on a consensual basis.
And something that you enjoy.
Exactly.
Because I'm not sure she's talking about it makes him feel empowered. She doesn't sound to feel empowered herself.
We don't, exactly. And that for me is where I'm saying, because if she was with someone who, let's say, practiced BDSM on a regular basis, there would be a potential for a serious relationship, because that person is looking for someone to explore that side of sexuality.
Right.
So my advice to this lady is, have you tried FetLife.com? It's the Facebook for the fetish world.
If she is, in fact, a practitioner of BDSM. I'm not
Exactly.
convinced. I think that there's other things going on here,
Which is why
that need to be addressed before that. Because if this is a pattern, if you think that your partners need to degrade you for them to feel empowered, and that's what you're working towards, when it actually plays against you, we need to change that pattern, because it's not working.
If she's in a repeating behavior pattern, recreating the past abuse, then no, that's not where we want to go with FetLife. If, however, this is something that she also gets some form of pleasure from, going to a place like FetLife that has resources and information for people that are interested in that, and finding the local BDSM community.
Yeah, you can also go to bdsmcircle.com is another website that has a lot of information about that.
And I think that would be the place to go if you want to explore that aspect. But again, first step I think would be therapy.
Yeah, and therapy to understand the patterns. That's the most important thing, and how it relates back to maybe that early childhood molestation is really important. All right, so what is the thing you hate most about dating? Texting in at 514-800 is how awkward it is when you first meet, and the baggage. The baggage. You can't help the baggage, though. When people say the baggage, what are we really talking about?
Let's be clear. Everybody has baggage. However, not everybody copes with that baggage. So if you're still pining over an ex and you haven't really dealt with that breakup, that's the kind of baggage that turns people off.
Right.
Sometimes people share too much of their baggage too soon, and it turns the date into a therapy session, which is a turnoff.
Right.
It's one thing if you say, well, I got really hurt in my last relationship and I'm still dealing with some of the things, but I'm here now with you and I want to get to know you. That's okay. You're letting the person know some of your boundaries. You're saying, I'm a little vulnerable right now, but I still want this to happen. That's good.
Right.
If you start talking and start complaining about everything that's happened to you when you're trying to get to know somebody else, that's where you may have crossed the line with that baggage.
Right. This texter writes, I'm not intimidated by dating. It's just that it's daunting, always starting over and going through the same old questions and monotonous technical process. It can feel like that for some people, where it feels somewhat awkward, unnatural, and it's like interviewing people. Somebody today was just telling me she was on a date, and it was like, it felt like an interview of sorts, and there was no flow,
Here's what you do if that's the way you're feeling. Take an active, curious interest in the other person. Because if you're feeling that sense of boring, monotonous, oh, they're going to ask me this again, they're going to ask me that again, that's not your focus. Your focus is not to get the other person to like you. The focus is for you to get to know the other person.
Right.
Try that focus. See how it changes things for you. Because I'm telling you now, when you make your focus to be enthusiastic about getting to know someone else, dating becomes fun.
All right. I hope people will heed that. The other person wants to know the other website to be for BDSM. So there's two that we mentioned, bdsmcircle.com and fetlife.com, F-E-T life.com. Other responses to what is the thing you hate most about dating? Girls who play games, like playing hard to get, taking time to respond, hot and cold, thinking it'll make the guy more interested. Playing games. Here's another one who writes, people who feign interest in another person with no intention of following through to boost their own ego. Example, when a woman tells a man, this is from a guy, tells a man she wants to see his new place. Then the man tries to set up a time to make that happen, and the woman suddenly stops responding or says she was just kidding.
Here's something to know, that especially, and this applies to online dating or any type of dating that takes place through the medium of technology. There are people out there who unfortunately have no interest in dating but love the attention. Which is why you don't allow an ongoing dialogue to take place over technology. You got to meet as soon as possible to prove that you're actually interested.
I think that's real important. Dating dilemmas tonight, and we are answering the question, or we're asking the question rather, and wanting to hear your answers. What is it that you hate the most about the whole dating process? Would love to hear from you right here on Passion.
She can help improve your love life in a few different ways. Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Tonight on the program, Dating Dilemmas. In studio with me is Frank Kermit. He is a dating coach, author of many, many books on dating, lecture series, audio programs, and such. He can be found at franktalks.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What is the thing you hate most about dating? 514-800 or 71010. If you'd rather call in, you're welcome to do that. Toll free 1-800-491-2523. So let me get to some of our texts here. Well, if the baggage that you carry is childhood molestation, how do you address that with guys so not to scare them away and think you are damaged goods? That's a really good question, because a lot of people, unfortunately, survivors of childhood abuse, which there are many, unfortunately. You're talking about 1 in 4 women have that kind of, if you want to call it baggage, I'll call it experience, bad experience or traumatic experience. It doesn't make you damaged goods. Like we have to get past that kind of talk, if you will. But it's a good question. How soon do you even bring that up?
Same thing with mental illness of any kind. The first thing you need to do is find out if the person you're dealing with is going to be open-minded about that. And there's ways to test for that. You can talk about articles you've seen in the news. You can talk about movies you've seen where this particular topic was brought up, and see how the person reacts. If they react in a compassionate manner, that's when you know it's something you can share with them.
Right. So actually what you're looking for in a partner is compassion.
You're
looking for someone who has compassion, who has empathy. A partner who does not possess that, or not in so much of it, you're going to run into issues with. They may not understand. They may not be supportive. They may not, And I've just this week I got an email from a gentleman whose girlfriend was molested, and he says, "I totally get it. There are a lot of sexual behaviors we don't do because it makes her really uncomfortable, and I really don't want to hurt her, and we do other things, and she's fine with that. But I've been, very patient, and it's okay. Like, I want to support her. I want to be with her." But he's adapting.
He's adapting, but I suspect that there's something else going on in that relationship. And it's not just that he is compassionate. She's made clear what her boundaries are.
Right.
She's made clear what she can and cannot experience with him. And part of revealing any part of history, I don't want to call it baggage, I want to call it history.
History, yeah.
Part
Someone's
of revealing any of your history is that you are the ambassador of your life, and it's up to you to educate other people about what you can and cannot handle.
Right.
And as long as you're willing to do that, as long as you are willing to be that ambassador and be that guide and say, look, this is what I'm dealing with, these are my parameters, and this is what we can do and what we can experience. Don't leave it up to the other person to be your therapist.
Or to figure it out.
To figure it out.
Right.
That's not their job. Okay?
Right.
It's your job to say, if this is my issue, I'm going to share it with you. And this is for both men and women.
Right.
I have an issue with X. I'm going to tell you what that issue is, but here's how we can work around it.
Right.
Don't wait for the other person to miraculously figure it out for you, because that is going to scare somebody away.
Well, I can tell you, too, a situation where, and this has happened on numerous occasions, where a couple has come in and they'd been together for a long time, and the childhood sexual abuse only came up much later in the relationship, but finally it actually made sense why the partner didn't want to do certain acts, but the non-abused partner didn't understand it, and it created a lot of conflicts in the relationship, and finally the story came out. And in this situation, the guy was like, "Why couldn't you have told me this before? I would have never, or I would have been so much more careful, or now I understand why you don't like this position, or now I understand, and and that shows to me anyway the importance of disclosure, especially when it has an impact on one's sexuality." and the relationship.
This reminds me of the trauma seminars that I used to go to get the certification as a trauma counselor. One of the things they talked about that women go through is that after the birth of their first child, because they experience the pain of childbirth in that area, it may trigger some memories.
Sometimes, yeah.
Behavior.
A lot of things can trigger memories. That's the thing.
Yeah.
A certain act can trigger memories. Spooning with a partner can trigger memories. Whatever it is,
Right.
Anything related to that history. All right, more texts coming in at 514-800-71010. I disagree. I always take a genuine, keen interest in getting to know a person, and that's the interesting part, but it still doesn't change the basic interview-like process, which must be reassumed over and over with every new person.
But why is that bothering you? I'm curious now. Why is it bothering you that you have to go through the process of getting to know someone new? Because if you enjoy the process of getting to know people,
maybe that's the thing is changing the mindset so that you actually enjoy the process. A lot of people don't enjoy the process.
I'm also wondering, and I'm hoping this listener communicates again. Is it? Are you by any chance just losing hope because you're dating so much and you still haven't found someone? Could that be a factor here? Because if you enjoy meeting people and you're legitimately enthusiastic in meeting people, that is a source of joy. But if that is being counterbalanced with the fact that I'm going on another date because I see this as a sign that I haven't met somebody, I'm losing hope I'm ever going to meet somebody, that's a separate issue. And that's something else that we would have to deal with.
What's the time limit, this texter wants to know, of speaking to someone prior to meeting them?
There is no time limit other than the sooner the better. I personally never recommend anybody goes beyond a week. If from the time you have that first, let's assume it's email to phone to meeting.
Usually it's text.
Or text.
But yeah.
From the time you make that first initial contact, whether it's text or email or phone, to the time you meet, if it's beyond 7 days, it's a red flag.
Okay.
So if you're talking and tonight's Wednesday, by the following Wednesday, you should be able to meet at least for a coffee face to face.
Right.
And if the person doesn't have time within a week of saying hello,
then they don't have time for you for a day. They don't have time for a relationship, possibly.
and it could be it could be somebody who's just looking for attention, but that isn't actually interested in dating.
So we're asking the question, what do you hate most about dating? This texter writes, dating someone and she wants a family and a baby ASAP.
That may be something that you don't like, but the fact is there's people out there that don't like dating and want to get serious right away.
Right.
So it's just about finding someone who's compatible.
Right.
And if you're not into that kind of pressure, maybe it means that you're really not interested in getting serious. If this keeps happening to you, my question is there something in your online profile, assuming we're dealing with online dating, that indicates that you are looking for that? Is that why you're attracting so many people?
And also you need to, you got to put it out there what you're looking for as well, right? So I know when I met my husband, we were both, I was 30, I think he was 32. We both knew we'd done with dating. Like we wanted to find a partner to marry and have a family with and what have you. So we met, it clicked right away. And within a few months we were engaged. And in 1 year we met, got engaged and got pregnant in 1 year. We're together 23 years already. So it worked for us because we both wanted the exact same thing.
Let's also, just in light of the listener, I don't think it's a good idea if the person is putting pressure just because.
Right.
And it's not because of that person specifically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I-
Obviously, the right person, it has to be the right person. It's not just because.
Yeah.
Just make me a baby and be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nobody likes that feeling of, then you feel like, what do you just want, a sperm?
Sperm donor.
You know? No, that wouldn't work. Obviously, it had to be the right person. This texter wants to know, what is the actual definition of a date, and how do you differentiate a date from a get-together?
Okay. If we're going to give it a label, as in a romantic date, the purpose of the date is to go out with a person, and again, this is in Frank speak here, is to go out with somebody and find out what potential role they can fulfill in your life. Whether it's as a friend, as a casual lover, as a friends with benefits, as something more serious, as a potential long-term partner based on your parameters. That's the point of a date. You're going out with that person to screen that person to say, what category of my life can I put that person into? What category would they qualify for? And what category would I qualify for in their life?
So in a situation like, I'm assuming like somebody says, hey, let's get together for coffee. And let's say the guy says this, and it could be in any combination of genders, but let's say the guy says this to the woman, let's get together for coffee. She's saying, oh, and questioning, is this a date? Is he asking me out on a date, or he just wants to be friends with me? Like, I'm assuming this is where it's coming from, you know?
Okay. Here's the underlying rule, okay? Friends don't need to get together and meet for coffee.
Well, I like to get together with my friends.
After you've established that they're friends and there's nothing
that's
there.
True.
But you don't say to someone, let's get a coffee so that we can become friends. You're going to become friends over the course of whatever the interaction is. If somebody wants to get together with you and spend time with you, they're investing in you. Mm-hmm. Assume that it's a date. Oh, but we didn't call it a date. Yes, there's a wonderful non-committal attitude out there of, well, it's just hanging out. It's Netflix and chill. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I love Netflix. So if the people of Netflix are listening, you know, I love you. I'm a subscriber.
I know, I like Netflix and chilling.
Okay. But let's be clear here. Anytime two people are getting together, okay, where there's an expectation that somebody's paying for one person or another, folks, consider it a date. If you're having a conversation, the person is already wondering if you are a potential mate for me.
Okay.
If you have any doubt, just assume it's a date. Period.
Okay. So just assume it's a date. Unless told otherwise, I suppose. I seem to meet men that only want sex but sell you dreams of a relationship to get what they secretly really want. Close to giving up. I guess this person hates that about dating. So what do you hate the most about dating? And we can talk about all the different issues, and we can go into detail with some of them, but would love to hear your thoughts. 514-800-71010. Those are the two text lines you can call in. You can text in, and 1-800-491-2523 if you'd rather speak with us directly. Frank Kermit is in studio. He is a dating coach. He's a trauma counselor, actually, and the author of many books on the subject of dating, and he can be found at franktalks.com. You're listening to Passion with me, Dr. Laurie.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Whether you need to learn how to talk or something more hands-on, she can help. Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Tonight on the program, Dating Dilemmas. Frank Kermit is here. He's a specialist in dating. He's a dating coach, and we're asking the question, what is the thing you hate most about dating? Boy, did we asked it on Facebook as well in preparation for the show. And wow, did we ever get a lot of answers to that. A lot of people hate dating. That was the conclusion I came to. Mm-hmm. A lot of people. So let's see. Do you want to respond to that? Like the woman who wrote that she gets the feeling that men only want the sex and that they sell you all kinds of things, like sell you. They make you, they give you a dream, you know, of what you want to hear, or they tell you what you want to hear until they get what they want and then they leave. I think that's quite a generalization, of course, about all men, because that's not true. I'm sure some people experience that.
Absolutely, some people do. And the rule is the best way to protect yourself from someone who wants to mislead you is to stick to whatever rules and boundaries that you set for yourself. So to give you an example, if your rule and boundary is no sex before the third date, let's say that's your particular rule. If you break your own rule because of what somebody says in the moment, you can't turn around and say, well, that person lied to me. You broke your own rule.
Right.
And if you really only want to have sex with someone who is legitimate in making a serious commitment, then you can't base it on what someone says. You have to base it on their actions. There's ways to test for that. For example, to the lady who wrote in, if you only want to have sex with a guy that you're in a serious relationship with, why don't you then wait until he demonstrates and proves that you're in a serious relationship? Things like, have you met his friends yet? Have you met his family yet? Have the two of you planned something legitimate in the future that cannot be altered? Look for those kind of signs if you are serious about wanting to have a serious relationship.
And those become your own rules. Like you decide your own rules. And
Exactly.
and we all have our own rules,
Okay. But you can't say, well, he only wanted sex if you're also open to having sex without being in a serious relationship. You're trying to basically say, I'm going to have sex even though we haven't established a serious relationship, but I only have sex in a serious relationship. You can't be a hypocrite.
Right. All right. 514-800-71010. By the way, thank you to our listeners who are sending me birthday greetings. Appreciate that very much. So let's see. In answer to, you asked that guy to clarify a bit about the interviewing. He says, no, it's the sheer repetition of requiring to go through the same old questions. I actually enjoy it more when we jump into interesting topics of conversation as opposed to asking the same old questions, which is akin to talking about the weather, downright boring. I guess in a way he's right. Like there's a, what do you do for a living? What, how many siblings do you have? Like those things. Whereas I think you get a lot more from somebody, and you get to see their values if you listen to the things they say when you bring up certain topics.
Yeah. And
it's really interesting.
101 things to say on a first date. There's a lot of different value games that you can play with a person.
Right.
And
that's Frank's book, by the way.
Yeah. So, and to answer that, if you can identify some conversations that really intrigue you, that turn on the enthusiasm, lead the conversation. It sounds to me that, okay, well, when the conversation gets boring and we have to talk about this, you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. You can even say on a first date, and it's okay to say this, there's certain things I don't want to talk about. It's our first time together. And then lead the conversation with conversation topics that you feel are interesting, that are going to bring a wonderful energy to that date.
And if the person doesn't, and the person is a she, not a he, they wanted to.
Okay.
If you feel that you can't even engage in that kind of conversation, which is important to you, then you have your answer.
Exactly.
Right there. You don't even have to bother to find out all the other stuff about them.
Exactly.
Right? You'll know.
It's a compatibility issue.
Exactly. So we asked you what you hate most about dating. The last date I went on, the guy asked for his money back for dinner after I declined his offer for a second date the following day.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, people are feeling used.
Yeah,
out
I guess.
there. There's a reason why one of the comments here was men are no longer asking women out. Mm-hmm. That the roles have reversed. Now, if a woman wants a date, she has to risk rejection and ask a man out. Somebody wrote in, men are becoming more feminine, women are becoming more masculine. And some of the women wrote in saying they're not happy with that. They prefer more traditional roles.
Interesting. I think that's very confusing to men, to tell you the truth.
It is.
Women who say, no, I want the guy to come, the knight in shining armor, I want him to pay, or I still want that, but yet we're also saying, well, we want equality, and we want, it's very confusing, I think, for a lot of men. I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman asking a guy out if she's interested and she risks rejection. It's okay. It's part of the process. You can risk rejection too. But it's not fair that it's always men who have to risk rejection.
But some of the women in the thread also said that they don't want to be the one to ask the man out because they are worried about being labeled as desperate.
Oh, so the labels also. And that's the same with the other double standards that there are. So there's a double standard for asking a man out, and there's a double standard for sex. Because if she wants to have sex, if she's interested in sex, she's afraid of being labeled now, easy or a slut or whatever it is.
Exactly.
That we still have that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. No, it does exist. It's unfortunate.
Right.
But that's one of the things that they're finding very frustrating.
Another texter writes in, I find most men are looking for beautiful women, making it hard for average-looking women to find a mate. There's a lid for every pot, though. I think I'd have to disagree with that.
Let's also separate the difference between a person's fantasy preference and what they're actually willing to go out with. And you have to exude, and I know this sounds so cliche, but if you're comfortable with the way you look, and you're okay with the way you look, you'd be surprised how many people will see that level of attractiveness in you. Mm-hmm. And yes, you may not look like the person who makes a full-time living on television or media or whatnot, but you can still look your best. You can still take care of yourself as much as possible. And don't worry about being rejected for not being pretty enough. I got news for you. I work in the matchmaking industry, okay? And I coach men who are millionaires. And let me tell you something. The stereotype of, well, these millionaires are only going after good-looking women who are young and hot. Are there a percentage? Absolutely. But they're in the minority. The majority of those men are looking for a woman who's closer to his age. More often than not, that's the vast majority. They're not looking for anybody who's hot and athletic unless he is also athletic.
Right.
He's looking for someone that he's compatible with, who's not down on herself. And that is the biggest complaint they have.
And that's, attraction is far more than what's just beauty on the outside. Far, far more. Because you can have a most beautiful woman who opens her mouth and there's nothing there and nothing to say, or can't hold a conversation, or is boring, or other things. You lose that interest real fast.
Look, there are always going to be that segment of the population where the person's looks are above everything else. Okay, that's all they want. The same way there's a certain segment of the population looking for people who have a certain number in their bank account. There's always going to be those people.
That's right. But it's not everybody. And I think it's important to say that. So here's a question. I have a female friend who I'm extremely interested in, but never made a move. Lately, she has distanced herself from our group. I recently reached out to her and she was grateful to hear from me because apparently no one calls her anymore. I know she's had it rough. She was into this jerk for a while who used her for attention but never wanted to date her, but gave her that impression. What's my move? I always hear people say, just ask her to dinner. You have nothing to lose, but for her to say no.
Okay. And that only works to just go in and say, yes, I'm just going to ask you out. That only works if A, she already had some inkling of liking you, or B, she's reached a point where she has said, enough is enough, and now I'm going to be open-minded and date basically anybody who's a decent guy who treats me well. That's the only time you go in that direct. Usually I would approach her and come up with the fact that you're seeing the world differently. You've had some sort of catharsis in your life. Okay, and whatever that catharsis is. She needs to see you differently. She needs to see that you have changed in some way.
Not as a friend, you mean? Because she only has known him as a friend.
She's only ever known him as a friend, which means that she's in that category. He's in that category of her brain. Okay, I wrote a book on this, From Friends to Lovers. How do you switch over from that category to a new category? You have to demonstrate that you're not the same guy she's always known. Because the same guy she's always known is that friend. And unless she has changed, because maybe she's gone through some sort of personal crisis or growth process, if she hasn't gone through that change, then she needs to know that you're not the same guy. Since you're not the same guy, that's the window of opportunity. That's where she has to now recategorize you. And if you address her emotional needs at that point, that's where she'll give you a chance.
So just to recap, so you wrote a book on this topic. What's the book?
From Friends to Lovers.
From Friends to Lovers. And I imagine you can be found on your website.
franktalks.com.
Right, franktalks.com for anybody interested in that. What do you hate most about dating? That's what we're talking about tonight on this Dating Dilemmas here on Passion.
This is Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Tonight on the program, Dating Dilemmas, Frank Kermit is in studio with us. He's a dating coach and the author of many books. Couple of topics we talked about, actually. The 101 First Date Conversations is a book he wrote, and the other one was From Friend to Lover.
From Friends to Lovers.
From Friends to Lovers as well. So if you want to turn a relationship that is a friendship into somebody you're interested in. We're also asking the question, what is it that you hate about dating? So this texter writes, so I tend to be a people pleaser and always willing to sacrifice my own needs to the point of not even sure what are my needs. So with guys, also just want to please them in order to be liked. Is this actually a turnoff for guys?
For sex, it's not a turnoff, but in terms of whether or not he can trust you to be a mom to his future children, that might be a cause for him not to want to be in a committed relationship with you.
Can I just add that you're describing a lot of what I see as codependent relationships. And unfortunately, though, codependents are often, the people who are attracted to them are often the users of the world. You're a giver. Clearly, you're a giver, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but you have to be careful because takers look for givers.
That's right.
And they will use you, abuse you, not treat you so well, and you're going to do handstands trying to please them, foregoing all of your needs, and you will not get treated the way you deserve to be treated. That's the reality.
Being liked cannot be the most important thing if you want to break the behavior pattern of being a people pleaser. Being respected has to become more important than being liked.
So my recommendation really is figure this out. Like maybe talk to a professional about this. There are actually groups for codependents that are helpful. I know Lifeline, Chabad Lifeline does a group for codependents, which is a good one. So this is something you might want to explore. There's some good books called Codependency No More is one. Another one, we've had this guest on the program a lot, is The Human Magnet Syndrome, Why We Love the People Who Hurt Us by Ross Rosenberg. So those are two of my favorite books that I give to clients who are the so-called people pleasers who end up in bad relationships because of this, or at least feeling used and abused. Texter writes, me and a buddy are in a debate about the integrity of a sex doctor. I didn't even read this ahead of time. Let's be real, it's definitely a made-up job. I would consider a person with your knowledge a person skilled in the trade of sex. He seems to think it's a job that people have. First of all, I don't know what you're talking about exactly, but just to be clear, my own training, I'm a clinical psychologist, and as a psychologist, I have a specialty in helping people deal with sexual dysfunction. And, I'm a marriage counselor as well. And one of my trainings, I got a 2-year intensive training on sex therapy. It's not just being a sex doctor, because there's no real sex doctors. There's therapists, there's educators. So this is what it is. It is a real job. It's not about being skilled in sex. It's about being skilled in helping people deal with sexual issues. There's a big difference. So it's not a, hooker turned doctor type of thing. That just is not it. That's just not it. All right. It is a legitimate profession, just so you know. So I hope that answers. I don't know who's going to win this bet, but we'll see. Now that women want more and more equality, they have lost their gender privileges and are now the same as men. Men and women will never be the same. It's not about being the same. We've had this debate many times, what equality actually means. I don't want to get into it. So could we just put that aside? This is a continuation of last question. Wondering if my need to please a guy. Oh, well, we answered that already. I get confused because I don't want to be the playing games type, because she's not being a challenge, or she's holding back, or whatever it is. But it's not.
We have to address this. This is about fear of loss. You're afraid of what you might lose if you don't people please. And there has to be a point where you say, I'm drawing this line regardless of what I lose. When you can stay hold to that line and say, I will do only so much. And it's good to be a generous person.
To your integrity, right?
But only you know where you're drawing that line, where you start to feel resentful. Once you start feeling resentful for doing something, that's when you have to communicate, and you have to say, I have to express myself that I'm not happy with this. Mm-hmm. When you're not expressing yourself, usually we're dealing with a fear of loss. If I express myself, the person might leave. You need to see it a little differently. And that is, if I lose that person, I'm better off and I'm dodging a bullet.
That's right. This text writes, I met a girl online and went out of my way to make her happy. And she was a taker and lied because she was married. It comes back to this. Again, the people pleaser gets, unfortunately, you give, and the other person only takes. There has to be a balance between give and take. You cannot feel like you're the only one giving anywhere.
Your job is never to make the other person happy. Your job is to find someone that wants to build the same kind of future you do.
All right, got that? Good. I hate when we asked, what do you hate about dating? I hate when men rush from first meeting to wanting to go someplace private too soon. Is from a woman. It's dangerous, as I found out. And how soon do you think it should happen? I think that's a rule for every individual, no?
Okay, I'm so sorry for whatever it is that happened to you. With that said, Nobody should dictate to you when you're ready to take it to the next level. It's important for you, however, to know what is your personal boundary and to communicate that on a date. So, if you're on a date, and again, let's say your rule is, and let's choose something here, let's say that you don't want to have sex with someone until 4 months into dating. Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not promoting it, and I'm not saying it's a ridiculous
just using
thing.
it as an example.
It's an example. If your rule is, I don't get intimate and I don't get naked until we've been dating for 4 months, that includes a minimum of once a week. You should communicate that. And if somebody goes running, well, that means you weren't compatible to begin with.
Right.
Choose a time period that you believe works best. If, however, you're going to say, well, it depends on the person and it depends how I feel, that's where you get into trouble. Because sometimes, especially if you've been wounded before, you can't always trust those feelings. You're better off saying, it doesn't matter how I feel in the moment. I'm sticking to my rules. And that, by the way, is how you avoid being played by anybody. If you make it a point to say that it's not how I feel that's more important, but it's following my own rules that's more important, that will ensure that the chances of you ever being played again go completely diminish.
Actually, last night we got a text from a gentleman who was telling us just that his girlfriend wants to wait until they get married, and he says, I'm respecting it, I'm respecting her boundaries, but I'm scared I'm going to get bored, and how do I convince her to do more? I said, you don't. You respect her, and if she's ready, or if she decides she wants to break her own rule at that point far into the relationship, that's up to her, but it's not up to you to push her or pressure her to do that.
What would happen if he did eventually convince her to break her own rule? Would he ever be able to trust her in the future? Legitimately trust her?
I don't know. That's a good question. There's lots of things we could say, and if you want more advice or more Frank advice, then you can go to Frank directly at franktalks.com. By the way, you can reach me, and people have asked me how to find me on Facebook. If you go to Dr. Laurie, Laurie, Betito, Betito, you can follow me on my public page and get all the news and updates and sex stories and other things that we publish on that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for taking part in our little survey about what you hate about dating. I think we learned quite a bit tonight. And thanks to our technical team in Montreal and in Toronto. So again, stay in touch with me through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dr. Laurie Betito, or my website, drlaurie.com, DRLAURIE.com, and then that'll take you to just about everywhere anyhow. We will talk again tomorrow night. Tomorrow night it's all about the law and the ugly side of passion. We'll have Maître Linda Hammerschmidt in studio with us answering your legal questions. Tonight, just after me, you've got the comedy show with your host, Joey Elias. Have a great rest of the evening, and remember to fill your life with passion.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, 'cause Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com, franktalks.com.